just abuse it, and that's the only reason. We could expand it to 10 or something.
Yeah. So the other thing we were talking about off camera that I know we were going to talk about more was about the idea of how to give people the freedom to express themselves without worrying about censorship. Now, I know that I told you off camera that we've been censored before on YouTube, which was pretty horrendous, actually. I didn't think it existed. I just did not believe it until it happened. And Yuri was like, "Come on, let's stop." I'm like, "Look, it's not. It's gone."
Yeah.
Wow.
How do you? What happened? So we had McAfee on the show, and I'll put a link to that up as well. And we put the episode up, and it was really talking about two things. One was about some things happening in blockchain, and the other was about him talking about the fact that he'd gone into exile from the U.S. because of the grand jury that was going on against him, and he wanted to be public about it and just talked about it. This was the only episode we've ever posted where it kept disappearing from our homepage, from our main feeds. It would just disappear. And as far as I could tell, looking at my own controls within YouTube and all the Creator Studio stuff, it was there. It was published. But people were commenting, going, I've got the link. The link works. I can get to the episode through the link, but it's absolutely invisible, and it's not showing up. It's not trending. Nothing. I had to take it down to unpublish it, and make it unlisted, republish it 5 times. And this was not happening just in one country. This was US, UK, Singapore, Korea, India. In different places, it was disappearing at different times. And this was just a one-off because we had other episodes that we posted before and after. And it was remarkable. And, we were surprised because we've also interviewed Andrew Yang who's running for president of the U.S.
Right.
We had no problem with that one because he's, of course, the squeaky clean guy. But right. I suppose if you want to censor things, you're going to censor what you want. And it gave us a kind of an eerie, spooky feeling that Google's got kind of an eye on us all of a sudden. And it was not comfortable thinking that here we are as content producers and just people that want to get the truth out there, interview people, have transparency, authenticity, openness. That's our goal. And to be honest, that's why I like Minds. I don't use Facebook. I've been off it for 3 years, except for live feeds. That's the only reason. It's just plugging it in from OBS, and I'll just broadcast that way. I like what I'm seeing in Minds. It's inspiring for me because I feel like I can post things, and you're not going to say, sorry, we blocked that one.
Yeah. It sounds like some shadow banning is going on there. And, you'd mentioned that you didn't see this week, but things got really amped up this last week on Facebook, where Facebook and Instagram banned James Woods, who's like a famous conservative actor, Alex Jones, Paul Just Watson, Louis Farrakhan, all at the same time. And they actually gave the press embargo about this. So they told the press that they were going to do this before they actually did it. And there were, full feature articles written in advance, which just goes to, speaks to that revolving door between some of the mainstream media and...
So it's okay to ban individuals, but it's okay for the Russians to go ahead and just, promote whatever they want to promote about, pushing a certain, agenda.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not sustainable, and the takeaway that I try, everyone, it's a big deal to leave your old social world because you put so much time into it, and people are, I think, a little bit overwhelmed by the idea of that. But to me, it's just about supporting the alternative. Sign up, check in once in a while, do a few posts on all of them, not just mine. The browsers that use the technology that supports your freedom, and a little bit every day, and that's what's going to build the alternative. Because look, you guys have a big YouTube following. The hammer could come down on crypto any day. Right. You never know what's going to happen. So you want to back yourself up. You don't want to be reliant on any third party for your own business and your own sustainability. This happened to us on Facebook. I mean, 10 years ago. Maybe 6 years ago. I mean, we had millions of followers on Facebook. We were still building the alternative, but we were using it as a tool to generate traffic. Millions of followers. We still do, but the pages are worthless. And the reach just got restricted. So we were making like a ton of, revenue with with advertising and whatnot, and the whole media industry got rocked by the Facebook algorithm changes, because you could, drive mega traffic if you had pages that big. And then they were like, no, you can only reach 3% of those followers now. Forget it if your whole business is destroyed and you can't, make money to eat next month. We don't care.
Right.
So we were just like, we need to build our own ad network. That doesn't spy on people. We need to just be fully independent. And that's what we just keep doing, and it keeps working out.
Yeah. So when we created a profile, as an example, like, in a Facebook terms, whatever content we put there, obviously they have control of it. It's in a database. How does that differ when we've created our profile with you guys? Is it not still sitting in a centralized database that?
It is, but we have a prototype network, gitlab.com/mine/nomad, which is fully decentralized. We're playing with both the DAP protocol and IPFS to be able to handle that in the back end, but that's all very young technology. So, but we're eagerly pursuing it because, we use AWS, which is probably not, long-term sustainable.
Right.
We, our policy is as open as it possibly could be. There's no reason for us. We want the market. We want the full marketplace of ideas. That is what is going to help us grow. But at the same time, I understand your concern. We need to engineer that ability out of our own hands.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what our intentions are, because things can still get squirrely when you're relying on certain providers. But at the same time, in order to provide a user experience that's at all comparable to YouTube or Facebook, using central servers are not evil. They can be, which is problematic, but in order to provide video services, the decentralized web is just not competitive yet.
No,
but we're working on it. We're trying to get there, and as soon as there's tools for us to play with, we're playing with them, and that is where we want to go.
It's great. It's we don't expect it to be perfect to start with either, by the way, but it's always good for people to understand where you are in this journey, and what are you planning? So what are you going to do next? Let's just say over the next 30 days, 60 days, what would you be implementing next that might be noticeable or not visible, but that users would have more benefit from in terms of how it matches against your current roadmap?
Well, one intermediary step to sort of ease censorship concerns that we're rolling out, hopefully this month is this jury system. So rather than us making the decisions, that content needs to be flagged, or blah, this content is illegal, we're still going to be involved, but we're putting it out to the community, so there'll be flash juries on appeals and much more content moderation, so the users can actually vote in pools of 12 on what they think should be happening to different content, rather than us. Because if it's us, it's just, first of all, I realize we have to have that job to a certain degree, but that's the worst part of the job, and that's the most dangerous part of the job. So that's really exciting, more like digital democracy. We're doing a lot of work with feed filtering, and we're doing a big upgrade with analytics. For blockchain analytics, we're basically pulling in all the Etherscan data so that users can understand their own token economics, and they can understand the token economics of the network as a whole.
Yeah.
We're leveraging Elasticsearch, which is an amazing framework, and Kibana to help us achieve that. But just better analytics. Look, the list goes on. You know what you want out of an epic social app. Every social app is becoming the same thing. What's really the difference between Snapchat and Instagram and YouTube and Facebook? They all basically do exactly the same thing. So what the open source crypto world needs to do is engineer an app with that same functionality, live streaming, everything. And but it just needs to respect your freedom. So,
Yeah.
you know, the funny thing is that any of these apps or companies, you know, all they would have to do to really turn the tides and have a sustainable future would be to just reverse their policies, open up their, I mean, I'm acting like this is a small deal.
we wish it was, right? But we already know from experience that there's probably so many different control mechanisms that these big companies have now put in place for various reasons that we're unaware of. Control,
Right.
and, you know, look, the world is oftentimes controlled a lot by the media is controlled more than people want to recognize because it's owned by a couple of big names. I mean, you know, so who's to say that because the media companies aren't being controlled that it's not being pushed down to us and things are being implemented and people don't even know why? I mean, we could talk conspiracy theory, and then we should be going over to the edge of wonder and talk with those guys instead.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you watch the Facebook conference and everything that they're seeming to focus on with privacy and, you know, their blockchain and their stable coin and whatnot, I mean, you know, the obvious prediction is that it's going to be proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning we're not going to have any access to see what the source code is doing. And they're just, it's going to be more of a control matrix under the guise of privacy and decentralization.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll surprise us and maybe it will be a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But, you know, when people talk about, oh, we're going to have end-to-end encrypted communications, but it's proprietary, it's a oxymoron. You can't, then you're then having to promise privacy.
Well, the irony is the whole idea, though, of these, you know, these protocols that are proprietary was always about how to make money. You know, if you look at the way Apple's entire ecosystem is defined and the way, think back some few years ago when the FBI wanted access to a phone and Apple said, sorry, we're not going to help you crack it because it's proprietary algorithms and we're not letting you in. I mean, This is the core of how things have developed in IT that I've seen over the last 20, 30 years. And proprietary was how you made money. You had to be edgy and different. You had to have the most unique thing, and no one else was allowed to get into it because if they could, everyone would go, you know, in theory, oh, everyone's going to copy my stuff, everyone's going to steal it.
Right.
That's not to say that would have happened, but that was at least when I was living in the world of fintech and working in software. That's all we ever talked about was the fact that our stuff was better than everyone else's, and we had our proprietary code with our proprietary algorithms, and we made open architectures and we made open APIs to let people use the stuff and connect in, but it was still ours, and it was still highly protected and highly enclosed. And if you look at the big corporate worlds, I mean, the level of security and the level of protection that they impose, even on their employees, I mean, my last employer, that was a big corporate employer, they were blocking us from using Skype. We were not allowed to use Skype because they were worried about things like files sharing and files being distributed, notwithstanding that you couldn't have WhatsApp, you couldn't have Telegram. They only wanted us to use internal ecosystem stuff in their own environment and was massively controlled because they were worried about corporate espionage. And there wasn't anything to steal. I mean,
It's a losing battle. I mean, you're never, first of all, there's always going to be some way that some employee is going to figure out how to share stuff if they really want to share stuff. But you're exactly right. That is the myth that has existed in the past in Silicon Valley, that, you know, we need to be secretive in order to have the edge. But moving forward, it's shifting. Now it's starting to be, the technology is like ubiquitous because open source is growing so fast that everybody is, you know, with a solid development team able to, you know, thread things together to have really amazing tech. Now the edge is, how much do you respect your users? How much are you empowering your users? How transparent are you? So it's the opposite, because now we're finding when a platform can get so big to have billions of users and basically global communications being reliant on these few platforms, there's just no excuse for the users not to come first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, so just move on from the space race and start working together.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we first released all our code, and you sort of have that fear. You're like, oh, God, we've been working for 5 years on building this, and is someone going to take it and compete with us? And then it's totally anticlimactic, and you put it out there, and you're like, oh, everything's the same. And actually, with the AGPL v3 license, which